Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear hosts, colleagues from Bosnia and Herzegovina, dear representatives of European Commission, dear members of EUSAIR, good afternoon and welcome on the panel which was organized by Subgroup for Energy Networks. As you are informed, our focus in the last few months is on the preparation of two very important documents, very important for us, master plan and roadmap. Therefore, we used this opportunity today to present you the preliminary results of these documents. Therefore, the title of our session is Designing an Energy Green Deal for the Adriatic-Ionian region to confront the challenges of climate change and energy security. We have two keynote addresses for this panel to present these documents. The first is Mr. David Tabarelli, President Nomisma Energia from Italy, and he will present you the master plan of energy networks for the Adriatic and Ionian region. And the second is Mr. Guido Cervini, Managing Director of DFC Economics from Italy. He will present you the roadmap. Besides these two keynotes, we have also a few panelists. First of all, we have Mr. Gilles Kittel from DG Regio, European Commission. Then we have Ms. Anja Kapetina, Head of Department from the Ministry of Foreign Trade and Economic Relations of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Mr. Christos Siropoulos, Policy Officer, DG Energy Platform Task Force, European Commission. Mr. Eleftherios Antonopoulos, Ministry of Environment and Energy from Greece. Mr. Sasha Ščekić, Head of Licensing and Technical Affairs Department, State Electricity Regulatory Commission, Bosnia and Herzegovina. And Mr. Igor Đokić, System Planning and Engineering Department, Elektroprenos, Bosnia and Herzegovina. I kindly invite Mr. David Tabarelli to start with his presentation and kindly ask to have 15 minutes in order to be on time. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Biljana. I apologize for my voice. And I leave also room for questions if you have some of them. We decided to have questions immediately after our presentations. I'm glad to be here. I thank you, Professor Garriba, Regione Marche, and the EUSAIR strategy for having involved me and my company in this very challenging project. We are in charge for presenting the master plan. This is a document that is depicting, drawing scenarios of future developments in the energy fields in the EUSAIR region. For it is very difficult. We have a lot of challenges, and at the same time, we are trying to transform these challenges in opportunities. I will present you how we built these the three different scenarios. The main result achieved so far, how these scenarios are coherent with others scenarios produced, especially by the European Commission. What are the main challenges and opportunities? And I will show also the projects, because I like a lot of the maps, and because we are talking about grids and necessitate of maps, and some conclusions. Where we are, this is the project that we are conducting. We have completed these different steps, and now we are towards the final conclusion. We decided in the last DG subgroup meeting to have also an executive summary, because we have almost 400 pages, and we decided to have something more something easier to communicate the points that we are raising. This is a taxonomy of scenarios. We in Europe, in the OECD, around the world, we are producing a lot of scenarios. The yellow one are those that are relevant for us. The main one, the most important, are those in the first column, the national energy and climate plans. Please keep in mind that I exaggerated a little bit, but we are so important in the energy field, and especially in the gas and power grids, because the future decarbonization of Europe and of the Western Balkan will pass through the energy sector and the energy grids. So all the national energy and climate plans are extremely important. We use the first word to produce, the first row to produce current policy scenario, then a new policy scenario with additional measure, and then the last one towards 2050, the net zero scenario, because our target is far distant, 2050, but this is the target, the official line, what we have decided, the net zero. And here, with the first picture, you see that we have a sharp reduction of energy, total final energy consumption all over the area. We have a problem of largeness, of the high dimension of Italy. With this part of Italy is just the Adriatic side, and then the other countries. Demand is going down because thanks also to the huge potentiality of efficiency to be reached, because we have also big delays among different countries. This is natural gas, and this is the most, the first and the most important issue that we are debating within us and within the single countries, and to some extent also within Europe. Is the natural gas going to be so important also in the future? Do we need all the new infrastructure for gas consumption and gas transport? Our answer is not perfectly clear. We produce scenarios. But in any case, I underline the fact that in the net zero 2050, natural gas consumption is close to zero. But it is going to be extremely difficult to do it. So what we did on the same picture, the same three different scenarios, we also introduced a new scenario at a qualitative level in case decarbonization is not so successful as hoped, in order to keep alive the need and to exploit also the existing and probably the next gas infrastructure that we are going to build in the next few years. And a scapegoat, a solution, a way to find a destiny for this structure is hydrogen. Now, hydrogen is a kind of a new revolution that we are hoping on in order to achieve the decarbonization, but it is going to be extremely difficult. The other side is electricity. Final consumption all over Europe, all over the world, are continuing to go on electricity. Electrification is a trend that started 100 more years ago. It is continuing. We are trying to accelerate the process in all different fields, transport, heating, industry. So we have an incredible rise in the electricity consumption. So the problem is that we have to produce them. Of course, in the net zero scenario, we hope to produce them with renewable energy sources. And this is a terrible challenge all over the world, but especially here. I want to emphasize this point because at the same time, here in this region, we have huge opportunities for renewable, for the traditional one, that I like the most, that is hydroelectricity. Then another problem, that of coal. We have two countries that rely a lot on coal. We do not want to avoid this problem. But of course, any country in the world would like to get rid of coal. But it is so important for security of supply of energy, as our experience demonstrated in 2022. I remind you that in Germany, and also to some extent in Italy, coal was the solution, or partial solution, for the past year's crisis. So we have to raise the point of how to phase out coal without having too many stranded costs that could jeopardize the economic growth of some countries. We cannot resist, it is marginal, but we believe that nuclear in the future could be and could have an important role. We have already an important production in Slovenia, close to shared with Croatia, of an important nuclear plant. We are debating in France. Gilles, I would like to discuss it with you. The future of Europe is still now reliant on nuclear. So we have also to discuss the future of nuclear in Europe, and we believe that there is some room for nuclear in the future, also in the net zero emission scenario in 2050. And now we move to the maps that I like them a lot. This is the ENTSO-E map of electricity. You can see immediately that on this side there are a lot of lines, even more than in the south of Italy, or center of Italy. And this is a key element. And this is also an opportunity to be exploited. We have very developed and structured electricity lines in this area that maybe must be connected, enforced, and more, in a better way exploited. The project that we have seen, on which we are working, are these. I'm very proud of these two lines from Italy, from my country, the Moneta, that, by the way, was built almost 2 decades ago, at least the idea was in order to get hydroelectricity from Montenegro. Then we have the Greta that we are discussing to doubling also this one, and all the different lines in this area, and we will hear from you later on about them. This is the gas grid compared to the power grid. So you do not see big structures here, therefore we are missing them. But this is, again, goes to the previous point. Our fairness needed if we have to get rid from natural gas in the future. So this is a problem that we have to discuss. But in the meantime, we have many ideas, many plans to expand. For example, we have already, again, I'm proud of it, the TAP, Trans-Adriatic Pipeline, that is bringing gas to Italy, to Puglia, from far away, from the Caspian Sea, and then in the future also from Turkmenistan. That is the southern corridor. And we are doubling it, especially after the 2022 crisis. We have to move from eastern supply to southern supply to east-south supply. So the TAP is already a huge opportunity to expand the Adriatic-Ionian pipeline, the gas line towards the other Balkans. And we have several projects of expansion. We heard this morning the expansion of Kirk LNG ship. There is another ship under construction in Ravenna. So there is a lot of movement, a lot of ideas, a lot of plans. We believe that they are so important also in Greece in order to get this system more reliant, more stable, and to guarantee security of supply, because we believe that gas is going to be quite important in the future. We have to provide security of energy supply, how we can achieve this energy transition towards a complete decarbonization of our economies. Gas structure are very needed in the long term. Phase out of coal without having too many stranded costs. How to support investment in renewable energy sources. How to increase cross-sector electrification. We have to boost the trend of electrification. Opportunities. Renewable energy sources are so important. There are a lot of potentialities in this area. Hydro, it's the best example, is that of Albania. We heard this morning mentioned the opportunity of energy communities. Renewable energy sources are always widespread on the territory. We need communities to produce them, and it is going to be very difficult the meantime. We have other huge opportunities for increasing efficiency and reduce consumption. Natural gas, in the meantime, is to be expected to be an intermediate fuel. Natural gas system can be used in the future for hydrogen. I'm not so fond of this idea because it is extremely difficult, but the policies are heading towards a higher use of hydrogen. Carbon capture, reuse, and storage offers additional solutions. Again, very difficult, but we were debating on the Ravenna side, on the other side of Adriatic, Eni, the Italian oil company, has a huge project to store large quantities of CO2 under the used gas fields in the Adriatic Sea. Then hydrogen production from renewable energy sources, because so far I didn't mention that hydrogen should be green and hydrogen, not gray, that is the same, it is not a solution. So the conclusion, these are what we have found and of course depicted are difficult scenarios that need to be addressed and discussed, and they are not easy, but at the same time they are very interesting. And we have so many differences, delays among countries that offer an opportunity to increase efficiency. Decarbonization and security are achievable targets, difficult to achieve, but the politics is defined. That those are the targets. These targets became even more urgent after the 2022 crisis because we need to get rid on imported energy from Russia or from other countries, and renewable energy sources are the best solution because they are always domestically produced. We have to invest a lot in innovation, digitalization. Digitalization will help a lot in energy efficiency, and we have to avoid, especially through on the phase out of coal, too many social and financial burdens, stranded costs. We experienced a lot of them in Western Europe in the past. So the history is reproposing itself. And at the end, and this is for the next future, we have to find a better solution to finance all the expansion of renewable energy sources. Thank you. I'm here to receive questions.
Do we have any questions?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you for your presentation. I would actually like to hear a bit more about the use of hydrogen and the current ideas surrounding this change of energy.
Yes, thank you for the question. It is quite interesting. The most interesting thing about hydrogen now is that it affected, it touched everything of the new policies in Europe. So everywhere where there is a policy towards 2030, 55% reduction by 2030, there is also always hydrogen. There is a disproportion between expectations concerning hydrogen and actual results achievable in the short term. And we are already experiencing it in Italy, for example, with the recovery plan. A lot of money was financed for hydrogen plan projects that are encountering already now huge barriers. But anyway, it is very simple. Hydrogen should be produced from water with electricity produced from photovoltaic or wind electricity. So it is very easy to say, as it is difficult to be. Yes, it is very, very difficult to be implemented at the same time, because the sun is shining just 1,200 hours per year. out of 8,000. So there are a lot of problems. And then there is a mistake because in the world, hydrogen is produced but consumed immediately. There is no market for hydrogen. Hydrogen is a vector. It is something extremely difficult to be implemented. But at the same time, we have to be aware that this is the future. We have to invest a lot of money, effort, solution, ideas.
Thank you, David. Any other question? Yes, Professor, please.
Thank you, Davide. I would like to thank you for the interesting presentation and the achievements of the master plan as we see them. And I have 2 points. The first, amongst several ones. First point is the role of natural gas in the region. We see the discussion that we have within the European Union about natural gas. There are countries such as France, Denmark, and others who are saying that natural gas is a fossil fuel. It should be phased out as quickly as possible. While other countries, notably Poland, Germany now, are saying we need natural gas as a transition fuel. Now, from my understanding, in the intermediate scenario is characterized, should I be correct, by, I say, an important role of natural gas as the transition fuel. It to be, in my view, very difficult for the region, to move, towards the net zero scenario without, invest in natural gas. This is also an unknown because we don't know if investments require money, require, interventions by financial institutions such as the European Bank for Investments. And I think this is a real point, that you may wish to underline in your conclusions. The other point, refers to hydrogen. How is hydrogen produced? Are we thinking of the so-called green hydrogen or hydrogen with other colors? Of course, should the hydrogen be produced, from natural gas with the carbon removal, it will be much easier, to consider, hydrogen as a fuel, as an energy vector for the future, while relying upon renewable energies. I can see difficulties since renewable energy would replace, and would sustain, the electrification. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I thank you for your suggestion to underline more this problem of natural gas, that we will stick to it because also if we continue to work with EUSAIR, with the structure, this is a point that we want to explore, to debate, and to solve also to some extent. The second point of hydrogen, I would suggest also to consider the blue hydrogen or the violet hydrogen, that from nuclear. So hydrogen is extremely difficult solution, but this is the policy. The European Commission and the European Union decided to invest and to follow, to have this very ambitious targets of total decarbonization, and this is going to be very difficult also. But we need everything. We need hydrogen. We need maybe some nuclear, natural gas, and it is going to be very difficult in any case.
I see that we are faced with a very challenging task. We need to balance between, or to find a balance between energy security and the process of the decarbonization, or how to make a solution, the best combination that we provide energy security, and on the other hand, we can provide green energy. And now we are talking about some solutions from the side of technology or new energy sources. But since you were faced in your work with lots of countries with different energy structures, with different possibilities and obstacles in the sense of energy, did you recognize some areas or countries with the same problems and the same solutions? Because obviously it's not possible to have the unique solution for all of us.
Yes, we have big differences among different countries. One of the most important is Serbia, that is relying a lot on coal. There is coal in this town, in this country, and the eastern part of Italy is completely different. Many differences, different approaches. Each one needs its own approach. And but I want to underline that this is not too different from our experience in Western Europe, within the European Union. All the countries are coming from different own histories and industries in the energy sector. So this is a continent of big differences. This is nothing new. We have to face it.
Yes, please.
Thank you very much. Just a quick question. Of course, it is very difficult to understand clearly about 400 pages, because behind, I mean, of course, there will be a lot of,
Yes,
let's
but
say,
there are a lot of tables and figures.
yeah, tables, and as well as a kind of assumptions and scenarios and so on. Actually, I was wondering whether I guess, I mean, you take into account which might be, I mean, the gaining about, for instance, the energy efficiency, in terms of how, in which way, I mean, it's going to reduce, for instance, energy consumption through energy efficiency, and probably, I mean, in those countries where energy efficiency is not so high at the moment, probably there will be much more gaining, I mean, on that term, but the first one. And then this can be combined as well with the rest. That means the rest, which are quite high, I mean, in the Western Europe, probably in the Southeast Europe, it might be one of the big leap, I mean, in terms of development and so on. Is it taken into account, I mean, in the scenario? And the third one, it is, did you take into account as well, I mean, the development of the smart grid? Because probably, I mean, even that one, it might be one of the major challenge, but at the same time, I mean, one of the main, I mean, gain in terms of, let's say, together with the, let's say, the physical investments.
Yes, probably I start from the end. The smart grids, probably we did not consider them too much as they should have been, but they are part of electrification. Electrification is reliant on higher consumption of electricity in towns where we have smart grids, and in smart towns through digitalization. And this goes to the first of your points, that is efficiency. For example, we have to change meters, but we have also to raise prices because they are too low. And as long as we do not increase prices, efficiency will stay always quite low, because the most effective way to stimulate efficiency is through prices. And at the same time, the stronger electricity grids enable to capture all the disseminated production of renewable energy sources that is always on the territory, dispersed, scattered on the territory. These are the challenges of these regions, but these are the same challenges that the United States or Western Europe is facing. The green transition is something that is in the top agenda of any country, and the problems are the same. So this is also an opportunity. There is a kind of standardization of policies and instruments and technologies. So we have to be also optimistic. We are running out of time.
Yes, yes, I'm aware of that. Thank you very much. I would like to add, please note or need to be aware that everything is possible if we have funds. So the funds are the basic for the action. Now we will continue with the second presentation, and I kindly invite Mr. Guido Cervini from DFC Economics Italy.
Thank you very much. I'd like to join Davide in thanking the organization for inviting me, in particular Professor Garriba and Regione Marche. My presentation today is on the preliminary results of a study focusing on market design, in particular on a roadmap or the roadmap for possible integration of the area's electricity and gas markets. And since I know that we don't have much time, and Biljana is a very strict chairperson, I'd like to start presenting you the main results, and then we will go through the slides, and I will try to convince you that what I'm telling is not my fantasy, but just it is true. So on our mission was basically to assess the distance of the current design of electricity and gas markets in the area compared to the EU target model, to identify the activities that are necessary to close any gaps between the market designs, and then to figure out a roadmap for implementation. Okay, let's, before we go through the slides, let me give you just a glance of our main suggestions. What we learned from, first of all, reviewing the current situation in the area is that the area is really has done a lot of progress in the last years, and so the main markets in the area are implementing or have implemented designs that are basically either the standard EU target model, in particular for electricity, or that approximate in gas the EU target model, if you can talk about a target model in the EU. So, and in particular, another thing that we noticed is that on gas, natural gas, we can discuss a lot about the design of the market, in particular, what is the European market design and how to implement it. But there are some policy decisions that have to be made as a preliminary step to sort of asking ourselves what is the best market design. And those decisions, especially for the smallest countries that consume today very little volumes of gas, relate to what do we do with gas in the future. Because if we look at the map of the gas plant, the gas projects, there is a lot of interconnections being built, planned, etc. Now, if it is assumed that all these things will go through, then there is a lot of discussion to make about market design. If the policy decisions in the countries that are currently not using much gas are going to be, okay, let's do without gas, let's accelerate the pattern to decarbonization by basically jumping away from gas, then the market design problem will not be there. Having said that, I think the rest of what I'm going to say will clarify that market design is not the crucial element there. So let me now move to the main results of our work, or the main suggestion. The main suggestion is that integration of the area's markets among themselves basically is nothing but a byproduct of integration of those markets in Europe, or with or implementation of the European model. And why is that? Because the European model is basically, by definition, Professor Garriba, I'm going to give you a ticket, small ticket, because you are the boss. But, okay, having punished Professor Garriba, and I'm going to pay for that, and I deserve. Now, let me just tell you our main result. Our main result is that, in a sense, the question of whether we should integrate those markets in a sort of an Adriatic-Ionian market. Excuse me, but this is not the right question. Because the right question is, once we have implemented the European model, the European market design, is it true that our markets will be, as a byproduct of implementing the European market design, fully integrated among themselves? And the answer is yes. The answer is yes, because the market design is not the European market design is definitely not perfect. It is not even great, if we want to be honest, but it has one virtue. It was designed precisely to make interact markets that want to remain separated, if you see what I mean, in terms of political, governance, etc. So we submit that if the European market design is implemented in the area to the fullest extent, as it was in some of the countries already, then the internal market, whereby internal I mean within the area market, will be as a byproduct integrated. So this means, in a sense, this is good news, because we don't have to think of alternative models to integrate the markets in this area. There is only one model that works already and can be extended in the area. And another, I think, pleasant byproduct is that the roadmap is relatively easy to identify, because all the milestones basically coincide with the milestones that are necessary to implement the market institutions that we have already implemented in Europe, and that have already been implemented in some of the countries, as we will see in a second. And the only matter is the time it takes to take those steps. And even in that respect, we have a lot of experience. We've done that in several other countries, and we can tell you how long it will take. So what is missing then? The only problem is the political will to do it. And that's something that goes beyond the purpose of our study, but that's what matters in the end. And finally, another area that we covered in our study is what is new. I mean, what is happening in Europe that is new and interesting. And in this respect, we will basically survey the proposals or the main elements of the policy discussions in Europe of a new market design for electricity that is more suitable to accommodate a larger share of renewables. And we will present the tools that are used, the mistakes that have been made in the past with other tools, and that hopefully will be of some use to the EU countries. Okay, so if I have 5, how long do I have before? Okay, let me. I'm around time over. Okay, still. Okay, if you want to ask questions, then I will show the slides that I need. Oh, 20 slides, but they're really boring. So if you have questions.
It's not boring. Energy is very attractive these days. But can you share with us what was the most challenging in your work? Which region or which country, for example, and most interesting to share with us?
Yes. So the first point that I made is that not all the countries are the same, is shown in this picture. Here you see the gas consumption per capita of the different countries. And you see that there are at least 4 countries, North Macedonia, Bosnia, Herzegovina, Montenegro, and Albania, that have very, very little consumption of gas. Those are the countries that brought us to think, well, but will these guys want to go ahead with gas or not? I mean, basically, for the purpose of our project, it doesn't change anything, because whether you want to go for gas or not, it's a good idea to implement the European market model for gas, even if it is only for 2 cubic meters of gas per year. But if you decide that you're not going for gas, then it's better to think of something else. Then what else? That's the same concept, but this time based on the observation of the investments in the development of the gas network. You see that it is what Davide was saying. I mean, there is a lot of movement on gas investment. It is true. A lot of stuff is planned or to a certain level of planning, development. Not sure about final investment decisions, though. But we also know that a lot of gas infrastructures are being built, for example, in Greece, the LNG terminals, etc. So there is a material risk of overcapacity of gas. Again, is this relevant for the market design? No. But it is relevant to decide whether there will be a gas market or not. If all these things happen, well, sure, we will have to develop an integrated market via implementation of the European design. If that doesn't happen, I'm not saying that we can do without implementing the European market design, but I mean, the problem sort of goes down by 1 order of magnitude. And these decisions come before the decisions on the market design. Then what else? Electricity. Electricity basically here was just to say electricity is structurally interconnected and electricity will go up in terms of production and use. So here, there is no shortcut. I mean, the European market design should be implemented, and actually has been implemented in most countries. Because then, what can I show you is basically this. This is the state of implementation of the European market design on electricity. And as you see, the largest markets have already started the path. Actually, most of them are well ahead of the path of integration in the European market and implementation of the standard market design. Smaller markets, I would notice Bosnia and Herzegovina as well, are lagging behind. And that's, okay, is it bad? Well, yes, it is bad. It's something to do. But it is relatively easy to do because Europe has already developed all the institutions, all the milestones to implement a competitive market in electricity, for example, in Bosnia and Herzegovina, are already there. There are several ways to implement. Some of them require spending relatively little because some power exchanges in Europe can do the work for the local power exchange, so the investment is small. It's just a matter of political will. I mean, it's one of those cases in which there is not much thinking to do. It's more doing. Then gas. Gas also, as you see, the markets where gas is used in sort of larger volumes have already implemented the milestones of the European, the pillars of the European market design. A virtual trading point and a relatively efficient mechanism to allocate access to the network, to network capacity, transmission capacity. Serbia, I think, has issues there. North Macedonia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and Montenegro, no, but they don't even have a large consumption of gas. That doesn't mean that they shouldn't, but at the same time, implementation is not difficult because here, this is different from electricity. In electricity, implementation requires several things to do. The NEMO approval for the market exchange, for example, is complicated. But in natural gas, you basically set up a virtual trading point that is a computer. You agree with Prisma or whatever institution to allocate transmission rights in a competitive way. You set tariffs according to the European model, but the European model is really not very flexible. You can basically do whatever you like as long as you dress it in the proper way. So no big deals there. Okay, now I'm ready for the questions.
Do we have any questions for this presentation, Professor Sergio Gariba.
Don't ask difficult questions.
Yes, thank you, Guido. Very interesting. I feel sorry to interrupt you while translating into Italian. Anyway, I have two questions or remarks. The first, there were several attempts to understand how to create, say, a single or let us say a power market in the region. I think we have to underline the roadblocks, which are the difficulties. I think this is an important point because, of course, we can see roadblocks here. So we can, or you may wish to advise the countries, to go on the green side. This is clearly a roadblock. While regarding natural gas, I think there is a question mark there, which is the role of natural gas in the future of the region. So should there be, say, an important role, there will be countries involved which are now practically excluded from any, let's say, natural gas market. And there is a new element which might affect the region, which is LNG. LNG might change, I would say, the supply picture and might change, say, the gas trading, say, system. This is an important point. And finally, of course, the power market and the power role in the region with the increasing electrification will involve renewable energies, and the renewable energies might require, say, new forms of power or electricity trading. So depending upon your time horizon, this will be again a new element to be considered. Some of the countries may wish, for instance, to consider the power purchasing programs or, requirements. So, these are my remarks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I think, let me react, because I think you said something that sort of gives me the opportunity to clarify two things. On electricity and renewables, I think what Sergio said is very important. A move to greater renewables calls for different instruments, not only to organize the spot markets, but also to incentivize investment. And this is the area that I rushed through when I said that we will cover what's new in Europe, because this is an area in which the European policy discussion is very lively. So we will definitely provide suggestions, or at least an analysis of the discussion on how to accelerate the transformation of the generation fleet from whatever there is now, coal in particular, to a greener generation mix. On natural gas, again, I think Sergio is totally right, because if more gas enters Europe via the countries of the area, a bit more sophisticated market institutions will be necessary. In this respect, the one thing that I noticed, and I didn't say that before, so apologies, is that the European design, even in that respect, perhaps more in that respect than with respect to gas, was meant to make separate countries to remain separate while trading is made possible. Therefore, we actually contemplated, among alternative possible market designs, the possibility to merge a single market area, to merge all the countries in the areas or groups of those countries in one single market area. But then we said to ourselves, why do that? Because the European market design is meant to allow even relatively small countries to remain with independent balancing arrangements with an independent system operator, etc., while trading flourishes across the borders. And this is achieved by allocating capacity in an efficient way via auctions. And this is already done in most European countries. Actually, I think now it is compulsory. Prisma, the capacity allocation platform, does it for everyone. There would be no problem to add countries to the list. They would actually be very happy. I think the good news, the bad news is that I'm not coming here telling you something exciting, because there's nothing particularly new to tell. The good news is that what we have is enough, and just implementing the arrangements that have been implemented in other countries, which we know very well. We know how long it takes, and for gas it doesn't take long. Just suggests that once the political will is there, it will not take long. Again, electricity is a bit more difficult because the NEMOs, and I've got this slide here. Okay, now it's time. Sorry, I wish I knew. On the electricity side, this is just the drawing of the process to become a NEMO. A NEMO is the market operator that is recognized by the other countries' market operators as the nationally appointed entity, so it becomes an institution. And in order to be accepted by the neighboring market operators, the process is not immediate, it is not easy. It takes, I would say, months to years, and it requires that basically a lot of the EU legislation be implemented in each of the countries. But having said that, it is a lot of things to sort of put one after the other, and in the report we will describe them. Probably someone here already knows them, but it's more a matter of deciding that we do that more than sort of asking ourselves how to do it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Guido.
Thank you all.
Please note that EUSAIR contains from 10 countries. Some are EU member countries and some of them are not EU member countries, but all countries have the same obligation to prepare NECP, Integrated National Energy and Climate Plan, and define its own targets for 2030 with a vision up to 2050. EU member countries defined and adopted their NECPs, and they are now in the process of updating these documents. But Western Balkan countries, which are not EU member countries, are in the process of finalization their first NECP. I think that this is the obstacle in the work of the both documents because you need to work on the base of some preliminary information, and we have not adopted yet our targets. So some issues are still open. Although everything is known, I have to stress that some countries like Serbia and probably Bosnia and Herzegovina are faced with a very important historical moment for their energy sectors, because they need to change the structure of energy sector. They need to change the behavior of producers and consumers, and it is not easy decision. Because in the case of Serbia, the energy structure and electricity production is based on lignite. So we are faced with very challenging issues for us. Therefore, now we have a few topics for discussion for our panelists. For example, what are the energy prospects and programs in the Adriatic-Ionian region towards the years 2030 and 2050? Then what are the energy regulatory challenges for enhancing energy market security and resilience in the Adriatic-Ionian region? How integration of energy markets may facilitate EU enlargement in the Western Balkan region, and concerns and roadblocks in the energy transition towards decarbonized energy system. So I kindly invite our first panelist, Mr. Gilles Kittel from European Commission, and please, Mr. Kittel, the floor is yours.
Thank you. First, I would like to clarify that we are not energy specialists in DG Regio, so we have a Director General dealing with the energy sector. They are, you see, the people deciding about the energy policy of the EU. For the Western Balkan, you have as well the Energy Community Secretariat in Vienna. So again, is to say that the steer in terms of policy choices is not in Regio. Now, let's say, referring to your questions, what interests us is how the strategy can bring something interesting to this debate. And here we have to admit, and that was mentioned, that obviously we are in a very specific situation with the crisis with the war in Ukraine, the sanctions, and the decision to change, let's say, the gas, essentially gas supply, but not fossil energy supplies, especially from Russia. In that context, at least what I can observe, again, I'm not an expert, but I think the instrument Repower EU, that the EU designed only a few months ago, is an incredible success. And I think that should make us optimistic that in reality we are able to change quickly more than we think, because nobody would have ever bet on our capacity to change so drastically the supply chain just a few months ago before the crisis. So, I mean, then it's obviously up to our experts to come with proposals based on what you observe, the specificities of the region. But it's just to say, and that's a bit our attitude, is we want to be constructive. We are convinced that there are solutions for the region, and we think that the strategy can be part of it. Obviously, the investments are massive. The master plan that you have shown to us, they cannot depend only on the work that we're doing in the EUSAIR, but nonetheless. What I would like also to mention before I move to maybe more concretely to your questions, at least the way I understand them from our point of view, is also to praise your work, the work of the TSG2 Energy Working Group. I think you have really achieved great things. I hope this will be also reflected in the revised strategy, because, you know, we are talking a lot about this revised strategy. And this revised strategy, should be designed for probably up to 2030 or even later. So we are talking about the same time frame, I think. Now, what is important in Regio is that we try to put the citizen in the middle of our policies and the territories, you see, because we have more territorial approach about the policies. And here, what I can say based on what I heard from our colleagues, also because you need to know we organized a macro-regional strategy week a few weeks ago in Brussels, and energy was really one of the important topics of the week. Our colleague mentioned that for them, where the strategy could really bring something to this discussion and also all the work that you're doing is this bottom-up regional cooperation. The fact that the regions, the territories have specificities in terms of electricity, gas. And then there is, you see, through the strategy, there is a way, you see, to strengthen the cooperation among us. Maybe not to have uniform solutions, but at least to cooperate. So that's, I think, something I consider. The other thing, I think, where I think our strategy and also the program supporting the strategy could bring something is the transnational level. Because still, member states and IPA countries tend to focus very much on their domestic market and their domestic needs. And here, again, the macro-regional strategy can help to link the assessments. Also, we are thinking that also the strategy could spread, for instance, the results of some pilot actions and share. And that's even a reflection that we have, because you mentioned hydrogen. Hydrogen is something which is, for instance, where the Alpine strategy is better advanced, and where we could take some inspiration from what they have already developed. I'm not saying that we should copy-paste, but at least we can benefit, you see, from the efforts that they have already done. So the other area where I think, because again, you understand, I'm not talking about your master plans, you see, you are far, I think, knowledgeable on those things, is example where we think, again, that transnational cooperation might matter. And again, we are at the level of the citizen, because we think the citizen need to sense also, in a way, the result of all this work, which is obviously essential, but which is largely invisible. Is, for instance, the technical standards for the electrical vehicle charging system. It's the replication, the renewable energy storage solutions, because we didn't talk too much about energy storage, but that's obviously an incredible challenge. And that might be part of the solution if we succeed to improve, you see, and we are working, I think, hard on that. It's also the common urban planning, because the common urban planning might actually improve the electric local grids. The way, so is to say also that through the territory, we can also approach this energy issue. And again, in that respect, the strategy can bring something interesting. So then maybe the last thing I would like to mention about the strategy and how the strategy can, you understand, the idea is not to substitute, you see, on certain issues, obviously, through your sectoral analysis, you can do much better. But this idea of embedding, and when we say embedding, is actually we try to coordinate better, and also we try to reflect better the objectives that you have in your master plans in the EU programs. And here we are talking not so much about the Interreg programs, although we can for certain things maybe, but the cohesion programs, certainly, IPA, you see, so the instrument for pre-accession, and also the investment plan for the Western Balkans. Because here, again, we know that sometimes we have difficulties to synchronize our efforts, but nonetheless, there is, again, a room, I think, for improvement. And what you have done, I think, can help, actually, to drive this synchronization among us. The other question that, at least the way I understood, you understand about certain very technical issues, I will not answer, but the other question I would like to answer nonetheless is what we can expect from EUSAIR in the future, where we think we have, and again, we cannot be too ambitious because we know that there is no fund attached to the strategy. So we have to think about quick wins, about, in a way, we need to be smart, we need to be agile, we need to be. So for instance, we could consider, and I think this is considered already in the revision work that we have undertaken, to be a kind of spin doctor, an incubator of ideas that we could then spread over the territory. The other one would be through a platform for capitalization of results. So if we have results that we have, for instance, in other strategies, we could maybe, you see, then use the EUSAIR. Immediately, we have a relatively large geography to deploy, let's say, those solutions. And also maybe to be a catalyzer of certain solutions, because otherwise maybe things are not always, can be done a bit in a fragmented manner. So EUSAIR might steer, in a way, certain initiatives, might also steer the funding, because, and that's, then we are back to this investment plan for the Western Balkans, if we are thinking. Or you see, Italy has obviously right now enormous funds, but how we can link all those things, and we don't work separately in isolation. So I think this is essential if we are targeting, you see, 2030 and 2050. So you understand from our point of view, is more how we coordinate better. It's not, you see, the technicalities. I understand there is a colleague from DG Energy. You might come, you see, with maybe more technical remarks, let's say, on your presentation. But again, we want to insist on the value of the strategy. We are convinced that the work done in the strategy is bringing really something different, interesting, which is not costly. And that's also something important, because otherwise the investments are absolutely massive in the sector. But here we are talking in a way about how we use our common sense. You see how we are networking, you see, to share some solutions. And again, the work that you did, for me, is really an example for the region. So in that respect, I would like really to praise the work of the working group. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kittel. Do we have some questions? Or everything is clear? So the solutions are there. Now I kindly invite our second panelist, Ms. Sanja Kapetina from Bosnia and Herzegovina.
And let me just, before I start, to greet all of you on behalf of the Ministry of Foreign Trade and Economic Relations for Bosnia and Herzegovina, and to say that I'm very happy that we are here in Sarajevo and that this year's forum is organized in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Regarding your questions, I would say, not question, let me refer on what you said. NECP, definitely the most important strategic documents that we are currently, thank you, that we are currently working on. And I must say that we, when I say we, I'm not thinking only on Bosnia and Herzegovina, I'm thinking about other Western Balkan countries that are member of Energy Community Treaty. We are in situation when we do not have the same starting point as EU countries, where we do not have the same amount of time that EU countries have. And when we do not have access to same funds, we need to be in the same level of ambitions that EU has. So it is very demanding, it is very complicated process, but we are working on that. When it comes to the Bosnia and Herzegovina, I'm glad that I can say that our NECP draft has been prepared. We defined our 2030 targets for energy efficiency, renewable energy, greenhouse gas emission reduction. We also defined policies and measures that are needed in order to achieve those targets. We also have some preliminary results regarding investments that are needed in period up to 2030. But what I need to say when it comes to the Bosnia and Herzegovina is that in this first phase, having in mind that, as I said, we do not have the same time as EU country has, we are not expecting much. So the biggest part of this decarbonization process will happen in period up after 2030, and of course, with the final goal to reach carbon neutrality in 2050. All these areas, all these issues and challenges that we discussed today are actually included in our NECP. I must say that regional cooperation is one important part of NECP, and I must say that is now, I would say, the most important to see how all our country in the region can tackle with all this issue, not just when it comes to integrated energy markets. I think that all areas should be discussed and see how we in the region can further work in order to reach our common goal, that is carbon neutrality up to 2050. I will not go into too much details because we have two more panelists from Bosnia and Herzegovina, so I will leave them some space for discussion also. But what I also want to maybe say is, if you are speaking about renewable energy sources, that was also something that we discussed. For example, for Bosnia and Herzegovina, our 2030 target is more than 43% of RES share. And I must say that we are now speaking on implementation of clean energy package because we, as a member of the Energy Community Treaty, are obliged to transpose, implement clean energy package. But we are aware that in upcoming period, we will need to transpose Fit for 55, Repower, and other. And Biljana said that she is afraid that we will not have enough funds to implement that. I must say that I do not fully agree with you. I believe that then when we show in our strategic documents that we are really ready to do this process of decarbonization, we will find funds. But I'm afraid that we will not have enough time to get all necessary preconditions to have develop new laws, implement that laws. We will not have enough people to implement all these activities. I think this will be the main issue, and again, here regional cooperation is important. So I mentioned our RES share, it is 43% more actually. It's bigger than overall target when it comes to clean energy package target in EU. And what this means for Bosnia and Herzegovina. Currently, our total installed capacity of renewable energy, I think, is a little bit above 2,000 of megawatts. Yeah. In period of less than 7, yeah, and in period of less than 7 years, we are planning more than 2,000 megawatts of new installed capacity, mainly from solar and wind. Before it was mainly hydro. So we all know what this means for our power system, what is needed, what kind of changes are needed in order to secure stability, security, and flexibility of the system. When it comes to the gas, I must say that gas is not transition fuel for Bosnia and Herzegovina. We could see from the presentation that we actually have only one source of gas supply, and we do not use a lot of gas. That's the reason why we, during the negotiation with the European Commission and Energy Committee Secretariat, asked that coal will be our transition fuel. Similar as in Serbia, our electricity production is mainly focused on TPPs. So we asked enough time to decarbonize our energy sector. We asked to have enough time to do proper just transition. So in period up to 2030, we will use coal. Of course, some capacity should be phased out. We plan to phase out about 400 megawatts from coal. But more ambitious decarbonization will be in period up to 2030. You also mentioned several times energy efficiency, and I will finish when I explain what we are doing regarding energy efficiency. And yeah, energy efficiency is very important reason for that is, I mean, it's clear we have of total 4 targets, 2 are related to energy efficiency. And in energy efficiency is huge potential in all our countries, especially in Bosnia and Herzegovina. In primary energy consumption, of course, when we can do a lot, especially with introduction of new technologies, but mostly in final energy consumption. For most of our, I would say, energy community countries, situation is more or less the same. The biggest consumer of final energy is households or residential sector. So this is the sector where we focus on. We prepared building renovation strategy. We developed programs for energy efficiency. And you also mentioned what is important in this process of decarbonization is new green jobs and everything. So according to estimations that we made for implementation of programs and building renovation strategy in Bosnia and Herzegovina up to 2030, more than 200,000 new jobs will be required. So I think that I will finish with this, just to say there are a lot of issues, a lot of challenges in this process, but definitely a lot of opportunities, and I'm sure that with all of us together, with cooperation, with exchange of information, we will manage to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Sanja. Some questions? Yes, please.
Not for Sanja, but Sanja spoke about just transition and about the phase that our countries are not at the same level as other EU countries, and we need to run the same race. Maybe it's for EU representative. Would it be maybe more appropriate to measure, I would call it cumulative CO2 emission per capita for last 200, 300 years for certain regions and compare the results, just thinking from the country that is not developed yet as some other countries that already emitted more CO2? Just a funny question, let's say.
Okay.
I don't know if the question is for me. I mean, it's more for a question for our colleagues. I mean, we are not, you see, I understand, you see, the question is fair, and even it's raised, you know, even by countries more south, let's say. They also consider that the requirements are maybe not, should not be equally applied, you see, on everybody. But this is a larger discussion, you see, it's not something to which, I mean, I'm happy to direct you, you see, to our colleagues, but I mean, you have a point, I understand, we understand that you might find a bit unfair, you see, to run the same race.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kittel. And now we have 3 more panelists. So I kindly ask our panelists to keep to take care on time and to have take only 5 minutes for their discussion. I kindly invite our colleague from Greece, Mr. Eleftherios Antonopoulos, from the Ministry of Environment and Energy.
Thank you, Biljana, for this kind introduction. Let me first of all thank the Bosnian and Herzegovina presidency of the EUSAIR for setting up this conference, this annual forum here in Sarajevo. It has been a pretty successful and dense presidency of the strategy, and not only in terms of the horizontal themes covered by the strategy, but also in terms of the pillar on energy. There has been a successful event on connectivity, which is the spinal cord of this strategy here in Sarajevo a couple of weeks ago. And again, the hospitality shown by the Bosnian hosts has been incredible and also an inspiration for future presidencies. Let me also thank the pillar coordinators for setting up all this work throughout all these years for the pillar on energy networks. In fact, when the strategy started in 2014, it was, forgive me the expression, the poor relative of other macro-regional strategies. But through the work and the procedures of the TSG2 and other pillars, we have seen that some of the things that were lacking from the very beginning, substantiated regional data on energy needs, on decarbonization needs, on energy transition perspectives for the region. These, on a step-by-step basis, gradually have been, there has been an attempt to be overcome. And I would like to welcome very much the presentation by Davide Tabarelli and also Guido Cervini. We're looking forward to the conclusion of these documents, which we hope could be used and could be set the precedent for future substantial policy evidence, which could inform the strategy and set a precedent in this regard. From a Greek perspective, I would also like to thank the representative of the European Commission for their presence here, and which has been stable and persistent also in previous meeting. And thank you also for the proposal for the regarding the incubator, for example. We approach the region of Southeast Europe and the EUSAIR region as our neighborhood in Greece. It's a very important area for us, and Greece has been a staunch supporter of the European integration and also market integration in this area. Of course, Greece takes also a wider perspective in the area of Southeast Europe, in the area of the East Mediterranean, and collaborates closely with partners on the EU level. From our side, we share the difficulties and the challenges of the members of the strategy, which are not member states of the European Union, in terms of acquis approximation. As mentioned by the Bosnian Herzegovinian representatives here, they face the particular challenge of having to implement the acquis within a very brief period of time, and that's something that has not been the case also for existing EU member states. That's quite a challenge, but let me comment on the promising fact that several of the NECPs are towards their finalization, and let me welcome the strong commitment with regard to energy transition in the region. With regard to the question raised by the Biljana Ramic, our coordinator from Serbia, on the path towards decarbonization, and this can be, if this can be reconcilable with energy transition, market integration, and sustainability. Let me explain our course taken in Greece as an example. For instance, by making particular references to our way of addressing energy security concerns, and also what is of key importance by the Greek authorities, the issue of strengthening interconnections, which we regard as particularly important for ensuring that higher renewables penetration in the energy mix will be sustainable, will be also balanced with a stable electricity system, together with storage, and eventually we see substantial EU support to interconnections among neighboring countries as a necessary precondition for higher renewable penetration and energy transition in general. Let me also mention a few examples from a Greek perspective. Of course, Greece supports the Commission's approach to energy security, and as I said, energy cooperation is necessary also for Greece. We note that Greece welcomed the REPowerEU initiative as well as the Fit for 55 package. More recently, in this spring, we were in the particular glad position to welcome the conclusion of a renewable target of 42.5% by 2030 at European level. Greece views the development of renewables as an important solution to tackle the energy crisis. Within the last year, within the last year, we have deployed 2 gigawatts of renewables, and 47% of electricity in Greece is produced by renewables. Greece also takes action to diversify energy sources and routes through the Trans-Adriatic pipeline, the IGB, the Revithousa terminal, the floating storage and regasification unit in Alexandroupolis, the Kavala underground storage, and the Greece-North Macedonia interconnection.
As mentioned also by Tabarelli, the expansion of the Trans-Adriatic pipeline is strongly supported by the Greek side. With regard to the interconnection project with North Macedonia, which allow me to say is of a regional significance, we had some really positive developments. The confirmation of the positive result of the market test and its acceptance by the Regulatory Authority of Energy of Greece in the beginning of the year. The project will be included in the 10-year development plan of the national natural gas system without precondition, and then a final joint investment decision will be signed with Noma Gas by midsummer this year. The start of the construction on both sides of the border is scheduled for the third quarter of the year and commercial operation in the fourth quarter of 2025. Also, there's a possibility of access to the system also for the Albanian gas market. Again, there is a market test in the pipeline for the submission of non-binding requests for additional quantities in the Greek national natural gas system at existing or new entry-exit points of the market test. On hydrogen, the Greek authorities are working on specific proposals and towards the finalization in the coming months of the national hydrogen strategy. Based on the results of a recent expert study, Greece, along with other countries in the Central and Eastern Europe, will be among the net exporters of hydrogen by 2030. Greece also, and Italy as well, are expected to show significant growth in technical capacity to develop renewable energy sources that can be used to produce hydrogen. In the electricity sector, let me note the close cooperation we have, of course, with the countries of the EUSAIR and Southeast Europe, but also with Israel, Cyprus, and Egypt. There are some particularly important projects being planned, and soon one of those, the Euro-Asia Interconnector, which will connect Israel, Cyprus, and Greece, will start operation. And there's another significant project, the Greece-Egypt Green Energy Interconnection, a major project for energy transition, both hugely important in terms of market integration, serving market integration needs in the region, sustainability, and providing security of supply, but also important for our Egyptian partners. The cooperation of the TSOs, the operators, with counterparts in all neighboring countries for upgrading the interconnections is underway. As mentioned by Davide, we are moving towards the doubling of capacity between Greece and Albania, Greece and North Macedonia, and the increase with Italy up to 1,000 megawatt is also being planned. Regarding the energy transition, Greece will focus on actions to achieve the 2030 targets for decarbonization, will address the economic challenges and the challenges of transition for its lignite areas, because we still rely on lignite for slightly above 11% of our energy production. And the challenges of climate neutrality is something we take into serious consideration as well. Greece is moving ahead also in terms of electromobility, e-mobility, with an ambitious program, and which aims to increase significantly the electrification of our transport sector as a key tool to achieve our climate goals. Similarly to the approach of other member states, in the past 4 years, we have introduced new legislation, policy initiatives, tax exemptions, subsidies, which we hope will create a very positive framework for e-mobility. Finally, I shouldn't conclude my brief intervention without mentioning that Greece is always ready, and both the national authorities and the Greek institutions to provide support to the Western Balkan countries regarding the implementation of the Paris Agreement and the implementation of the EU acquis. Again, thank you very much for the hospitality.
Thank you, Eleftherios. Do we have some questions? Yes, Professor.
Yes, thank you. I would like to thank Eleftherios for the very interesting presentation and for the support. I mean, Greece is giving, let's say, to EUSAIR and, I mean, to our subgroup on energy networks. I have two question or remarks. The first refers to hydrogen. I mean, on hydrogen, we have, let us say, on the northeastern side, hydrogen valley. I mean, this is the idea we have of a hydrogen valley which should be open, I mean, to cooperation with other countries. I was assuming that Greece is thinking of a hydrogen valley open, I say, to other countries as well. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm going too far. The hydrogen valley is, I mean, financed under the Next Generation EU. I say in Italy, I don't know about Greece. And the second point, of course, we are looking within our system to a continuity between, say, Greece, which is moving towards Middle and Far East, perhaps, and Central and Northern Europe. I mean, so there is a channel there, which is made by the Balkan countries. I think this is a very nice idea. We are working on that. And an element to this idea regarding energy was the East Med. I mean, this Med corridor and this Med pipeline. Is this project still there, or are we thinking of a different configuration of natural gas supplies? Thank you.
Professor Gariba, for your questions. Always work towards stimulating the discussion. With regard to your second question, the East Med, and we have this particular example, the proposed Eastern Mediterranean gas pipeline. From the perspective of the Greek government, the project is still in place as a proposal. And if I may say also from the Cyprus authorities, the project continued to enjoy its support. The project is inscribed on the list, the fifth list of projects of common interest on an EU level, based on an exemption provided by the revised 10E regulation. It can be eligible for inclusion in the PCI list under the regulation 2022-869, derogation for Malta and Cyprus. Of course, if I may also try to cover the other element of your question with regard to different configurations of the East Med and the interconnection. Of course, these are always being assessed and examined. With regard to this particular pipeline, and if I may share with every reservation the views of the promoter, is that it's being proposed as a natural gas pipeline with a view to being hydrogen ready. That's as much as I can say for this particular project. So also with regard to the first question, yes, I mean the perspective of Greece is one of a bridge between the southern end of southeastern Europe to Italy, Western Europe, Central Europe, and in this regard, of course, regional cooperation and key flagship projects are important. Of course, it has been covered also within this meeting. There are differences in the advancement of the regulatory environments between different partners in the region, which can create certain shortcomings. And but at the end of the day, there is willingness to overcome those obstacles and provide with our means every possible support to accelerate process towards European integration, also in the field of market integration, regulatory reform, because at the end of the day, not just for the pre-accession countries, but also for any country that aspires to open its markets, electricity markets, gas markets to competition, and then a strong regulatory framework is not only a prerequisite, but a condition sine qua non in order to provide affordable energy with a view to serving also the needs of the consumers. Thank you for your question again. I hope I did provide a satisfactory response. So thank you.
Thank you, Eleftherios. Thank you very much for your active participation in our work on USR. I must say that in the case of Serbia, we have technical support from Greece for the two very important issues, energy transition and just transition. And now we have online also Mr. Christos Syriopoulos from DG Energy from European Commission, and I apologize since Mr. Syriopoulos are waiting to be included in this panel. And I kindly ask also to be very quick since we need to finalize our panel. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I hope you can hear me well. I'm very happy to be with you and participate in this discussion. As always, these are very important discussions, and the interventions so far were very interesting. I will start my intervention by presenting to you what we have done in the European Union the past 1 year. It's important to remember that even in the pre-crisis era, we were facing several considerable common challenges. Among them, we can include the dependence on fossil fuels, unreliable suppliers, climate change, dependencies on technologies, value chain disruptions, and at the same time, we needed to maintain our competitiveness and our social cohesion, because every public policy and energy policy is one of them, has to serve multiple aims. That's why we also need to address the competitiveness and the social cohesion targets. So when the war started in Ukraine, all these vulnerabilities created an energy and a cost of living crisis. The EU had already in place a proposed framework to address all these challenges. It was the EU Green Deal and the Fit for 55 package. After the crisis, when the crisis started, we proposed the REPowerEU plan last May, and it had two broad goals. One was ending the EU's dependency on Russian fossil fuels, and second, to tackle the climate crisis. So last year, European Union introduced a big amount of emergency measures. These measures included gas storage filling targets, a reduction of gas consumption, measures to lower electricity cost for consumers, gas demand aggregation, a market correction mechanism to prevent the extreme volatility of prices, and a temporary framework for faster renewables permitting. Finally, currently we're under discussion a new electricity market design reform, which will help to further decouple electricity prices from the gas prices and bring a lower cost to renewable consumers. So, trying to present really shortly the results of what we have done until now, one should say that we have already diversified away from Russia. If we consider that before the crisis we took from Russia 155 BCM, and in 2022 we received 62. I think we had a very significant progress. Also, we did great work on the storage level. In the 10th of May this year, the storage level of gas was at 62%, and for the reference years, the period between 2016 and 2021, this number was at 42%. So even in May, we are significantly higher than the reference period. And all this winter, we were considerably higher than we used to be the past 5 years. Also, a great job was done concerning the gas demand reduction. The period August 2022, March 2023, we had a reduction of 18%. That means that we cut down 52.8 BCM of gas. And we need to stress that the target that we had, it was 15% and 45 BCM. So we over-exceeded our target. In March 2023, the member states of the EU decided to extend this voluntary demand reduction for another year also. We need also to say that European citizens saved 20% of their energy consumption. And most importantly, we have to say that we had a massive investment in renewables. Only two figures I will say to you. We have doubled the additional deployment of renewable energy last year. And also, we have, for the first time, generated more electricity from wind and sun than the electricity we produced from gas. Now, coming to the regional level and the Adriatic-Ionian region, I think that the idea of an energy deal for this region can be a key driver of our work. It can facilitate us to implement all the framework that we have created for climate change and for addressing the current energy crisis. So this can be an opportunity to engage accession countries at the regional and local level. But at the same time, we should keep in mind that considerable work is being done in other regional cooperation fora also, such as the Energy Community and the CESEC. So we need to find ways to create synergies for the work that is being done in all these forms of regional cooperation. Last, I will say a few words concerning regional integration of the energy markets, and especially on three issues: long-term planning, the integration of electricity markets, and the development of cross-border infrastructure. First, on long-term planning, we need to pinpoint that in the EU we have an excellent tool for regional cooperation. This is the National Energy and Climate Plans. So the NECPs, among other things, allow us to identify areas of regional cooperation and cross-border actions, as well as sharing good practices between member states. Currently, the governance regulation is transposed in the Energy Community, and all contracting parties should create their own NECPs until June 2024. Also, in the last ministerial meeting of the energy community, the Council adopted the 2030 energy and climate targets for energy community. In this respect, soon all the countries that participate in this cooperation in this region, EU and non-EU, will base their energy and climate policies on a long-term planning, on regional cooperation and on targets heading at the same direction, meaning all countries will be heading for greening their energy systems. So we think that we have a concrete basis to start our work and go even further. Secondly, concerning the electricity market integration, we have to say that the last Energy Community Ministerial Council adopted this package. So gradually, the markets of this area will start to be integrated into the European internal electricity market. Third and last, concerning the new 10E regulation we have in the European Union, which will be adopted by the Energy Community Ministerial Council in December, we have to say that this new regulation introduced projects of mutual interest with third countries, in addition to the project we have for the inside of the EU. So with the new regulation, we have eligible infrastructure categories, which include electricity lines, storage, smart grids, offshore grids, smart gas grids, hydrogen pipelines, storages, and electrolyzers. So the most important change from the previous regulation, and this is very important to keep it in mind in our discussion, has to do with the energy transition process and concerns our infrastructure planning for future greener and eventually climate neutral energy systems. So we have two changes in this respect. The first one concerns new technologies like hydrogen. So hydrogen projects will be included in this regulation. The second important addition is that we add infrastructures that are necessary for the development of an energy system that is based on renewables. These infrastructures include offshore grids, storages, and smart grids. Secondly, we have a very important change, is that gas infrastructure projects will not be eligible anymore. We have to keep in mind that this regulation is the result of a very extensive discussion inside the EU among its member states and its institutions, commissions, council, and the parliament. And of course, the same discussion is happening all over the world. So the central idea is that all future infrastructure development shall contribute to the decarbonization of our economies and will help to deliver a clean, but also secure and affordable environment for our citizens. So this regulation now tries to minimize the danger of creating overcapacity and possibly stranded assets. Of course, we should keep in mind also that in the short term, a few gas infrastructure projects might still be needed. Actually, right now, we have some projects under construction, and also we have projects near the final investment decision. So this infrastructure will be needed, especially for regions which are under transition or regions that are trying to update their energy security status. But of course, this cannot be the rule for our future planning and actions. Strengthening of interconnection is the priority to facilitate the integration and effective transmission of renewable energy sources to the energy system of the future in the region and the European Union. I try to be as quick as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Syriopoulos, and I kindly ask Mr. Sasha Ščekić, only a few words, if it's possible, to say from your perspective.
I will not say I will be quick as possible, because if I say that, I'll probably speak for half an hour. So let's just tackle some of the issues that we were talking about today, especially renewable energy. We started promoting renewable energy, let's say, from 2008, when State Electricity Regulatory Commission, through issuing connection rules and giving renewable energy production facilities possibility to have 50% of payment for connection. That was, let's say, a first something that state offered to renewable energy investors. And since we didn't have much experience about regulation of the system, we concluded that we need a cap of renewable energy. It was capped at 350. Then we learned a bit. We introduced a good balancing market, and we said we can have 425 megawatts. Then after that, also a bit smarter, we said we can double that and include solar power. And last year, we finally removed all the caps and all, let's say, burdens for new investments. So there is no any limit for connection of renewable energy. But everything that I said was, let's say, for investors, I would say, not so important. The most important thing was the high price of electricity. When the high price happened, we had huge amount of investors willing to build new projects, and we also introduced a new concept from the last year, that was virtual power plants, that we allowed small producers that are less than 1 megawatt to offer the electricity on the wholesale market. And that was a surprise for us. We expected, let's say, 30, 40 megawatts in total, and we now have 156 megawatts each month of those small ones. We are just counting those small ones that joined a big balancing group and sell on the wholesale market. And one more thing, we usually, before these virtual power plants, we said it's hard to plan wind and solar. And after a couple of months, we saw that balancing responsible parties are misusing the system. And we said you will be punished if you don't plan your production well. And they are planning really, really, really well now, just because they are aware there will be payment for the behavior or misbehavior on the market. So I know we don't have much time. I'll stop with this. If you have any questions, I'll answer.
Thank you. And we have Mr. Igor Djokic. I kindly ask you to say a few words from the perspective of TSO.
Good afternoon, everyone. Sasha and Sanja made great introduction for my intervention. As I'm coming from transmission company of Bosnia and Herzegovina, I will talk about the transmission network of Bosnia and Herzegovina and challenges that transmission network faces as mainly the main component that needs to be built in order to integrate all the renewable energy sources. Can I have the budget? So I'll skip few. So I'll skip few introductory slides and go straight to the. It works. So I'll go straight to the transmission system of Bosnia and Herzegovina. It's really hard to talk about transmission system when we cannot see the map of the transmission system. Our transmission system that transmission company of Bosnia and Herzegovina is in charge of is made of 400, 220, and 110 kV lines. Those red lines are 400 kV network. As you can see from this picture, we are quite well connected with the neighboring systems, as we are all built under the same ex-Yugoslav network. Also, our system was built for the last 70 years, and this system was built in order to supply the energy to the customers, and also to integrate great power plants, big power plants to the network. So our system is best developed in those areas, in central Bosnia and in the northern Bosnia. And as you can see, our transmission network in this area, in southern and western areas, is not quite well developed. And from the perspective of integration of the new renewable energy sources, currently we have connected to our network 3 wind power plants of installed capacity of 134.6 megawatts. Total requests that we have currently are 3,000 megawatts from wind power plants and some 7,500 megawatts from the solar power plants. All these requests are in different stages of the connecting procedure. We conducted the connecting procedure based on the connection rules that Sasha already mentioned. I'm not going to go deeply into all the different stages. All these power plants are in different stages. We already have some connection contracts signed. Those connection contracts are mainly for, most of them are for solar power plants. And we also have many connection studies being currently conducted. So if you looked at our transmission network, all these requests, some 95% of these requests are in those areas where the transmission system is not developed. And when you consider it that on the other side of the border is Croatia, and in Croatia they also the main most of the requests for connection to the Croatian transmission system are on the other side of the border. As you can see on the western part of the Bosnia and Herzegovina, we only have 1 or 2 110 kV lines where we can connect those renewable energy sources. Also in the southern part of Bosnia and Herzegovina, also on the border with Croatia and Montenegro, we have the most requests, and our transmission network is not developed there. So in order to connect all these renewable energy sources to our network, we need to build a transmission network in those areas. It's not really hard to see where we need to enforce our transmission network, and also it depends on what Croatia and Montenegro are going to do with their transmission systems. So with that being said, we can go to our current plants with the interconnectors to the neighboring systems. Mr. Tabarelli made great introduction what is going on around in the much vaster region, and we're gonna just see what are the interconnectors between Bosnia transmission system and the neighboring systems. So we have two main projects. One is in the eastern Bosnia and Herzegovina. Sorry. One is in the eastern Bosnia and Herzegovina, connecting substation Visegrad with Serbia. That's part of the greater project going on in the western Serbia. That is the project Trans-Balkan Corridor that connects Serbia to Montenegro and to cable to Italy. And the other one is the interconnection between Banja Luka substation going to Croatia. From both of these interconnections, we have the feasibility studies done, but the interconnection with Serbia is currently at the construction permit phase, and the other one with Croatia is being postponed feasibility study was based on the assumption that the transmission line will be built in 2030, but for now, new request from Croatia is for project to be postponed to 2035. The other interconnections to neighboring systems are only in the conceptual phase of the project developing. So we cannot say what are going to be the results. We started negotiating with the Montenegrin transmission system terms of reference for another interconnection, and what is going to be the final result we'll see after the completion of the feasibility study. So in order to let me just finish this, as Sanja already said, in order to integrate all the renewable energy sources, we will need to have what is the goal. First of all, to have what is the goal, then to have the money, and then to have time. And I'm not going to go into details of what that means. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Igor. Some quick question, perhaps. Okay, yes. If you have any questions or comments, you can also send to us and by email. I apologize because we are behind the time schedule, but this is very interesting issue for me, certainly. I adore to discuss about energy. And what to say at the end of this panel. There are... Sorry?
No, I said no to a further question.
Yes, of course, I will come to Mr. Umberto. What to say at the end? There are lots of differences between countries. There are lots of solutions also. And from the energy perspective, 2030 is tomorrow. But we cannot act alone. So from the perspective as a coordinator for energy networks on USR, please use or take USR as opportunity to make solutions, to make joint cooperation in order to achieve our targets and our goals in the field of energy and climate. At the end, I kindly invite Mr. Umberto and Professor Sergio Gariba to say also a few words as conclusions.
You have to stay. Yes, vai.
Bene. Allora, amici miei, abbiamo parlato di pilastri. Ho chiesto un supporto statico per la mia deambulazione. Vieni tu. Da niente a tanti si fa confusione. Michele, tu hai un compito che è quello della comunicazione. Prego, sai che devi fare. Bene. Allora, amici miei, io parlo in italiano perché così mi capiscono bene gli amici italiani. E parto con un ringraziamento.
Dear friends, I will speak in Italian, and first of all, I would like to start with thanking you.
Benissimo. Allora, visto che siamo una famiglia, la famiglia europea,
given that we are all an European family,
io vorrei che convintamente voi facciate un applauso alla madre di tutti, l'Europa. Prego.
I invite you to applaud.
Non è uscito convinto, però va bene lo stesso. Allora, ringrazio l'amico Davide, perché questa è una sfida epocale. Quindi vi ricordo per similitudine la battaglia di Davide e Golia.
I would like to thank my friend David because this is a battle in epic dimension. So I would like to recall the battle of David and Goliath.
E allora a Davide, a Guido che ci guida, ma al professor Carribba, un applauso più convinto. Lo potete fare? Su.
To David.
Va bene, ci andiamo lo stesso in Europa. Che voglio dire, il lavoro fatto quando si parla di energia ed ambiente è un discorso che coinvolge tutti. La nostra battaglia è stata sull'aggiungere un quinto pilastro, che è il pilastro sociale. Grazie. Che è il pilastro sociale. Prego.
So when we speak about energy and environment, we have to have in mind also the fourth pillar, which is social pillar.
Perché poi la sintesi è quella che è uscita dal discorso di Jill Kittel, ma dall'amico greco Eleftherios e dal pragmatismo sano del nostro amico bosniaco. Che significa? Tutto questo si traduce in spesa sociale.
We have to also keep in mind what the outcomes that we heard from the speech of Mr. Gil, from our Greek friend and from our friend here from Bosnia, which is also the social impact.
Quindi noi dobbiamo progettare qualcosa che vada a coniugare i 4 pilastri di cui ci siamo occupati fino ad oggi, ripeto, energia, ambiente, direttamente connessi al sociale.
So we have to intertwine also these four pillars, which is energy, environment, and to link them to social aspects.
Questo significa che noi, grazie al lavoro di Guido, di Sergio Garribba, di Davide e di Coppola, che sono la struttura portante, non può non prescindere dal ruolo della Regione Marche.
We should not neglect the role of Regione Marche, taking in consideration also the work of Davide, Professor Coppola, Mr. Sergio.
Quindi il sacrificio che la Regione affronta, e ringrazio lo staff, Donatella, Stefania, Laurita, Sania che saluta sempre con una certa timidezza, e l'operatore nostro che è Michele. Grazie a questo staff noi siamo riusciti a mettere su qualcosa di importante.
Thanks to the work of our staff, which
Dimmi.
Non
preoccuparti. Mi succede spesso che
we
mi
managed
dimentico.
somehow to put in field a project.
The project. Cosa dico su questo? Tutta la diversità che ha accompagnato questi giorni di lavoro, perché abbiamo lavorato. Ho assistito a diversi ambiti, quindi diverse. Stamattina eravamo in comune, stamattina eravamo di là, ma sempre la difficoltà che io ho colto in tutta questa questione è la base comune.
Despite all difficulties and all different things that we saw in these days, however, we managed to also having all meetings here in municipalities to work and to carry out our work.
Allora, io mi auguro che la traduzione sia integrale, perché quello che io sto dicendo è tutte le difficoltà nella diversità delle politiche governative, e sono 10 stati membri che aderiscono a questa strategia e 14 regioni dello Stato italiano. Dove ho trovato il vulnus? Dove l'ho rilevato? Dove lo rilevo? E dove voi con queste difficoltà lo rilevate quotidianamente?
So despite all these different things, and I hope that the translation is that I can fulfill this horrible and difficult task.
No.
We have 10 states that stand behind us, and we have also different regions. But you have to, you've probably seen the problematic aspects. And
Ecco.
which problematic aspects are?
Una di queste problematiche è la lingua. Io parlo e dico una cosa, il traduttore forse la interpreta e ne dice un'altra, ma il fatto vero è nella normativa. Abbiamo parametri che detta l'Europa e noi diamo risposte a secondo la diversità economica dei nostri Stati membri. Quindi dalla Slovenia per arrivare alla Grecia hanno interpretazioni diverse, per carità, legittime, ma se vogliamo andare in Europa abbiamo bisogno di costruire una coscienza europea che parta dall'energia, che parta dall'ambiente, che prende tutti, che parta dai mari, dai porti, ma che abbia lo stesso obiettivo, andare in Europa.
You could probably see that the problematic aspect is the language. So maybe I say one thing and she will translate another. She will say another thing. So this is not a problem. Every state has its own regulations and laws. But if you want to strive and to go towards Europe, we have to adopt a unique regulation and work together in this path.
Il mio tempo è scaduto. Mi scuso, vi ringrazio, ma sappiate sempre che avete una base operativa, una piattaforma a vostra disposizione, a nostra disposizione, guidata dai nostri esperti. Un applauso a Davide, a Sergio, a Coppola e a quanti, anche Guido, non ti abbiamo dimenticato. Signori, è stato un piacere essere qui, un onore.
We remain available as platform, and thanks to Davide and to all of you.
Bene, un applauso alla traduttrice.
A few words.
È l'emozione.
2 words from Gariba.
Okay, I'll make a short announcement. I'm sorry about that. I would like to thank everybody, particularly the coordinators, Biljana and Goran Nikolowski from North Macedonia. He could not attend. I would like to thank especially our panelists. It was, I think, a great, very good, session. Now, this session is coming to the end of the first programming period of EUSAIR. So we decided, the 3 coordinators and subgroup on energy networks, to organize a final event that we are calling Open Conference of Pillar 2. This conference will going to happen in Rome. I don't have the date yet. I assume it will be first days of July. And then all of you are invited. You will be seeing the result of the master plan, of the roadmap. You'll see the books of the several, EUSAIR labeled projects on transport and energy. And you'll see the next, program as formulated by all of us. There was the contribution by everybody, by the Commission and everyone towards, the next period of time that we assume it will be successful. We are going to build upon our achievements. We were able, I was in the very starting of EUSAIR, to develop a cooperation which I think unique. Our governments talk together and they work together. And we are going to move together towards, the challenges of our future. Thank you.
Thanks for the hospitality, thanks to Bosnia and Herzegovina, thanks to European Commission, our panelists, our consultants and all of you. And now you can enjoy in Sarajevo, Bastarcia and everything. Thank you.